Kristi, Noem, and Corey Lewandowski's rumored affair is both gross and hilarious, but it's also a key to understanding why MAGA is such a disaster. These people say they're strong leaders. Instead, they're clowns. I'm Amanda Marcotte. Welcome to Standing Room Only. You may have missed it because of the holidays, and I sort of hope so because I want to be the first to show this to you. Homeland Secretary Kristi Noem's family Christmas photos. That man she's standing next to but seems unwilling to touch, yeah, that's her husband, Brian Noem. And yes, he spells his first name with an O. They used to touch each other before she moved to DC and he stayed in South Dakota. You see, there's this persistent rumor that she's having an affair with her top aide, Corey Lewandowski. Well, he's sort of her top aide. He was hired to be a temporary government employee. He was supposed to leave last summer, but he's sticking around. As the Wall Street Journal recently reported, he basically co-runs DHS. And everyone at DHS thinks they're sleeping together, even though they deny it. We have to say that for legal reasons. Even the New York Post had to dip in, running a story about how their boss makes fun of them for drinking from the same can. The chatter is getting so loud that Kristi posted a video to prove that she still hangs out with her husband.
I'm here at the Reagan International Airport, and I'm just dropping off my husband, who's headed back to South Dakota.
He's like 20 feet away from her. That's more like court order than marriage. I'm tempted to point out that Kristi has said that biblical principles are her foundation in all things. But if Republicans cared about hypocrisy, they wouldn't have any leaders left. No, there's another reason that I want to talk about these two. It helps expose the lie that Kristi uses to justify herself. You see, she likes to present herself as this tough broad bringing order to a chaotic country.
DHS is securing our borders, we're restoring the rule of law, and we're protecting the homeland. We have sent a strong message to criminal illegal aliens that we will find you, we will arrest you, and we will deport you. The American people depend on the Department of Homeland Security to remain vigilant, agile, and responsive. We will never yield, we will never waver, and we will never back down.
I mean, who could ever trust somebody who thinks Ice Ice Baby is a good song? But she and her alleged boyfriend can't even act like adults at work. Corey literally fired a pilot because Kristi's favorite blanket wasn't on their taxpayer-funded private plane. But then they had to rehire the guy because they didn't have anyone else to fly them home. That plane is a symbol of how these two are wreaking havoc at DHS. They've defied all standard government procedures to obtain a luxury 737 MAX jet with a private cabin in the back. This is not normal, as Aaron Ryan and Alyssa Mastromonaco, who used to be Obama's deputy chief of staff, explained on Hysteria.
A DHS spokeswoman said this plane is used for both cabinet-level travel and deportations and is allegedly cheaper than military aircraft for deportations. For 6 years, however many years of my life, any cabinet secretary that wanted to use a plane had to get my approval. I have signed more forms approving people's planes. None of this makes sense. I don't understand how a luxury 737 is cheaper than military aircraft for deportations, which is like a C-17 with like a harness on the inside.
But of course, they want an even fancier plane that you and I will have to pay for.
Welcome aboard the VVIP 737-8 MAX jet. Paneling's quite nice. This is, I think, maybe a powder room on the left-hand side that the secretary may use. Somebody said there are bidets on board. Those are all captain's chairs. If there are deportees there, I don't think they're going to be using the wet bar. Another bathroom. Is this a bidet? Oh, this is bedroom number 1 with a throw blanket. Are those mixed nuts up there? There's a microwave. I don't even have a microwave in my house. I swear to God. Welcome to Kristi Noem's bedroom, guys. Didn't ever think that I would say that on national television.
Oh man, yeah, we're gonna need an even bigger sex plane. I love that there's like 3 bidets in there. So this isn't just about corruption. It's also about sex planes, sorry. This isn't just about corruption. Kristi and Corey are wrecking balls at DHS, and apparently in their planes. The two told agents to post videos of their violent arrests online, but when those videos started backfiring with the public, They berated their underlings. There's constant staff shakeups. State and local officials say they can't get their calls returned. And Kristi reportedly yells at her staff if border czar Tom Homan is on TV more than she is. I'll discuss this more during Pass the Mic with my guest, Paul Waldman. Her personal behavior is bizarre. So is her theory that masked federal agents terrorizing innocents would make people feel safer. Both expose the fundamental lie of authoritarians, that they can bring law and order. Instead, they bring chaos. The notion that you have to trade freedom for order is the foundation of MAGA ideology.
Senator, everything we will do would be lawful and under the Constitution,
Okay,
but
I'm
I
gonna take that as a
recognize
yes.
that this administration has abdicated its responsibility. President Trump is going to restore
in the
order at the
spirit
border.
of-
Chaos is the worst thing. Chaos is worse than illegal immigration. Chaos is worse than police brutality. It is a spiritual force. Of course, God created order out of chaos. Chaos is the realm of Satan.
As Christians, we are called to be agents of order and agents of clarity. But no, this does not mean that every nation has to represent every culture. The truth is, hot take, we do not see the importance of ethnic diversity within nations or local churches anywhere in Scripture.
If you are registered, get up off of your couch. Get up. Get up. We can actually get a Republican running the state and restore order or some sort of decency to New Jersey.
You're not gonna get me to insult New Jersey. Ellie Stuckey using like this order like language to just go full-blown racist was pretty wild. So yeah, you can see that everything ugly is being justified with the use of order. Racism, sexism, whatever the hell is going on with Tucker Carlson in that clip.
Chaos is very much like melanoma.
Kristi Noem even justified shooting her dog by saying he was hard to train.
Was it a puppy?
They tried to
puppy?
hide from tough decisions. It was a very hard decision for me. It was 20 years ago.
Was it a puppy?
No, it was an adult working dog.
But
It was an adult working dog that was attacking livestock.
14 months old?
And killing
The dog
livestock.
was 14 months old?
It was a year and a half old, the dog was, yes.
Okay.
That is not tough behavior, that's weak. But Kristi doesn't bring order. Look at the DHS offices, which are a shit show. It's even worse when you look at what DHS is bringing to the streets. Okay, so we figured you guys have seen all the horrible videos of ICE agents assaulting and even killing innocent people. If we didn't want to re-traumatize you, ICE agents aren't making the streets safer, even for themselves. There's a larger lesson here. Authoritarians promise that they can keep people safe if you give them total control. The opposite is true. Unchecked power creates chaos. Leaders have no accountability. They can behave cruelly or unpredictably, and the people they hurt have no recourse, whether it's their spouse or... Of course, the president refuses to see this. He wants to blame Democrats for the DHS shutdown.
This is a Democrat shutdown. This has nothing to do with Republicans. This is a Democrat shutdown. They're upset that the crime numbers are so good.
That's right. Liberals. They want to get mugged and assaulted and raped in the streets. They're crazy. It is no different than Tucker Carlson being like, chaos is demons and spiritual warfare. At this point, their enemies are all just completely, like in their minds, are just demons. Actual fucking demons. Trump is delusional. The people most to blame for this situation are himself and Kristi Noem. We didn't see this chaos under Biden. ICE acts like gangsters, not law enforcement. Being subjected to mafia-style rule is not safety. Ben Franklin, and I'm sorry I'm gonna have to do this. I don't know why I have such a hang-up about quoting a founding father, but let's just go there. Ben Franklin famously said, "Those who would trade liberty for security deserve neither." Kristi Noem is living proof of that aphorism. I'd like to welcome Paul Waldman to the program. He's a commentator who is a contributor to MS Now and to Public Notice. He also has his own newsletter called Cross Section. Welcome to Standing Room Only, Paul.
Thanks.
You had a recent article that was titled, and this is a great title, MAGA white supremacists are a bunch of pathetic losers. And I was like, oh, you got to come right on because that's perfect for this episode. But first, I just want to talk about your article. What's it about?
Well, for the master race, these guys are pretty sad. And I think that's something we see a lot. I mean, first of all, the context of this is that not only has the Republican Party gone to the right steadily for many years, which I think is something everybody understands, but in this administration in particular, there is a kind of really, I don't think you can call it by any other name other than white supremacy that has just infected the entire party into the halls of power. And that includes the White House, the federal government, congressional staff. We've heard these stories about the text messages that come out where they're making jokes about Nazism and trading Nazi memes, and this kind of Groyper ideology that is really just runs through so much of the right today. And, we saw this recently with somebody who was appointed to a pretty high position in the State Department. He had a congressional confirmation hearing, and some of the senators were asking him about this book that he read that was decrying the decline of white culture in quite explicit terms. And, they asked him just simple questions like, what do you mean by white culture? And he really couldn't explain, and he kind of hemmed and hawed. And I think it was just illustrative for a lot of people of who these guys really are. And you have these, these teams of like 4chan trolls who are now in charge of the social media accounts for the White House, for the Department of Labor, for the Department of Homeland Security. And they are just, spending all their days with the official organs of the United States government, just churning out these kind of white supremacist memes. And they just think it's the funniest thing ever. And this is what our government has been taken over by.
Yeah, so DHS puts out all these memes and images and even song clips that are ripped straight from neo-Nazi websites, and it's not subtle.
No, it's not dog whistling. It isn't as though when they do that, I don't think even they are fooled into thinking that somehow, only their people are going to get it. Because it's 2026, it's not hard to find when they make a reference to some song lyric and it turns out it's, something that is constantly traded around in neo-Nazi circles, like we're all going to find out pretty quickly. There's going to be somebody who sees that and says, I know what that is. And then they spread it on social media and, within a couple of hours, everybody knows what it is. There are no more dog whistles, and that's fine with them. They think this is all hilarious. And it really has become just so much a part of the Trumpian style of politics.
So this episode is about Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski, who really illustrate your point that these people are both pathetic and dangerous. And this first clip is a really good example, and it's about Corey Lewandowski.
Odom was seated next to Lewandowski at a charity dinner.
He was saying how large his privates were and saying how long he lasts in bed because of how much he works out. He started touching me.
He was touching you?
Yes. Putting his hands on my lap and trying to touch my butt, and I kept pushing his hand away.
She says she even tried asking another woman at the party for help.
And I was like, I really need help. I kind of explained. She's like, yeah, Corey does this all the time. I'm like, this is so weird. How is this okay?
Some people watching will think, why didn't you just leave?
Well, I did. I didn't think he would keep following me, though.
She says when she got up from the table, Lewandowski stalked her through the hotel and then threw a drink on her.
You have all these guys who sort of fancy themselves alpha males, think they're so studly. And the truth is that, were it not for the power that Donald Trump has given them, they would just be a bunch of losers. They're sort of strutting around in this very kind of performative version of masculinity that, you see someone like Pete Hegseth, he's always talking about the warrior ethos and, working out with the troops, and he can't even do a real pull-up. And you can draw a line right from them to all that sort of looks-maxing stuff that is very much right-wing coded. And it's this really kind of very mannered performance of kind of a fake version of what masculinity is supposed to be that is in large part performing for other men which is a whole, there's all kinds of, you need a PhD in gender studies to really grasp all of this, I think. But we definitely see that in the administration. It comes from the top. One thing that Trump always says is, that guy, he looks like he's right out of central casting, right?
Yeah.
Trump has this very much conception of everything is a show, that it really doesn't matter what the substance is. And there's nobody who embodies that more than Kristi Noem. I mean, she, as far as we can tell, doesn't actually do much actual work of administering this enormous department, that she's like flying from place to place, putting on different costumes and, going out and creating social media content. She is like a content creator. I saw one clip of her where she was going to some place. Maybe it was that time in Minneapolis where she went up on the roof. I'm not sure, but like,
oh, it's Portland.
But she had, Portland, yes, where she had like 5 videographers trailing her as she went to where she was supposed to go. Like, she's a content creator, and that is her primary job. And that is true, I think, of a lot of this administration, that they do a lot of substantive stuff, much of which is very harmful, but they are constantly creating content. That is the prime objective of so many people in the administration. It's content creation.
You just gave me a perfect segue to the second clip I want to show you, which gets to your point that you were making about how the little low-level staffers that they hire at these places are nuts. And I want to show you a clip from Lauren Biss, who is the woman that they've hired to replace Tricia McLaughlin, who was the DHS spokeswoman that got kind of mildly famous for all the lies she was telling about ICE. But this new woman, I'll just show you this clip. It's insane.
I'm Lauren Biss, Deputy Assistant Secretary at the Department of Homeland Security. I'm here to set the record straight on false reporting surrounding our brave law enforcement. These men and women who are simply enforcing the law on the books are facing a 1,300% increase in assaults against them, a 3,200% increase in vehicle attacks, and an 8,000% increase in death threats. This week, we celebrated Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. If you see a law enforcement officer, don't forget to thank them for their service.
I don't know if you saw that there was a typo in it.
A 1,300% increase in assaults against them.
When you see a video like that, what are your thoughts?
I mean, obviously, you notice that, like, this tribute to the brave law enforcement officers, what does it show? It's a guy in a mask who is kitted out like he is about to enter Fallujah circa 2004. And what is he going to do? He's going to arrest some grandma, that had a parking ticket 10 years ago, and now they're going to deport her. Like, that's what these guys are, especially in Minneapolis. It's so vivid. They're trying to be so tough and strong, and they're the wimps. The people who are protesting are out there who are not in body armor. They're sometimes in their bathrobes, and they're going up and confronting armed men in body armor and helmets and masks and saying, we want you out of our community. That takes courage. Like, there's nothing courageous about those guys. And yet they want to, portray themselves as kind of the embodiment of courage and manhood and heroism. And Trump is the very embodiment of this kind of fake manhood. He said at the State of the Union, he started to kind of ramble on about how he really wishes he could have a Congressional Medal of Honor. And it turns out that he asked about it, that he can't just give himself one. Like, are you serious? Private Bone Spurs wants a Congressional Medal of Honor. He's always talking about this, about how, he would be really heroic. I remember there was an incident in his first term. It was when the shooting happened at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. He started to talk about how, if he was there, even if he didn't have a gun, he would have ran in to confront the shooter. And it's like, are you kidding me? You never displayed a moment of physical courage in your entire life. And you're trying to tell me that you are what it means to be heroic. But that's true of all these guys, They have this vision of manhood that is not so much about who you actually are. It's just about what kind of a performance you can put on. And, I think it is really, really dangerous. We've talked so much about this crisis of manhood, and young men don't know how they're supposed to be men and how they're supposed to be in the world. And all they're being offered is this kind of performance that the right is offering them, that is ultimately just completely vacuous, and they're never going to live up to some look smacks her, who is, bashing his jaw with a hammer because he thinks it's going to give him a better line on his next video, that is not a model that any ordinary young kid can follow. And that's what I think is one of the things that's so dangerous about it, is it just feeds that kind of disgruntlement, that sort of feeling that you can't quite fit in, you don't know how you're supposed to be. And they're just making, with these kind of performances of manhood, they're making everything worse for so many people.
Yeah, there's so much insecurity, and I think that a lot of people don't see what you and I see, which is like, are you really tough if you're buried under a bunch of armor? Are you really are you authentic if you need to put on so many airs?
Yeah, it really does feel like a lot of overcompensation. And they've built up this kind of ideology around it where they're the besieged ones, they're the victims. J.D. Vance at the Turning Point conference a couple of weeks ago came out and said, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore, as though anyone in J.D. Vance's life ever made him apologize for being white. But there's this kind of ideology of victimization that says that we're oppressed, and that's what gives us the license to then be oppressive toward other people. It's all about how, they are the victims, and there's this battle going on, and it can only be a battle to the death. And that's why we have to be able to act in ways that are morally reprehensible.
So the Wall Street Journal said that Kristi Noem, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, thinks she's going to run for president in 2028. And, we have been talking about her. So let's watch a clip.
We have stopped enough lethal doses of drugs from coming into this country that would have killed 1.7 billion people. That's what the department has done in conjunction with our law enforcement officers in protecting in just the last 12 months. And the Democrats are saying, no, we want to play politics and we want to risk the lives of Americans.
So she's learned a lesson about running for president from Trump, which is tell lies that are so big people just throw their hands up in the air. We saved 1.7 billion American lives. Folks, there are only 380 million Americans.
I've wondered about that. With obviously the other thing that's just like this is Trump always saying that he reduced the price of prescription drugs by 600%. And you have to wonder, did anyone actually tell him that if a price goes down by more than 100%, now they're paying you? Or does he know, but he just likes to do it because he knows that it makes liberals mad? And I think that it may be the latter. I'm not sure that, that's part of the sort of power you get from that certain kind of lie, is that just the fact of the telling is kind of an assertion of power. That it's like, look at me, look what I can do. I can say these things and they go out to millions of people and you can't stop me. And when you tell me that it's not true, I'm going to just say it again. Obviously, everyone on the right learned it from Trump, that we had this idea that, there was this kind of fact-checking system. And the way it would work is a politician would tell a lie, and then some fact-checker would say, actually, that's not true, and here's the documentation that shows you why it isn't. And then the politician, because they didn't want to be known as a liar, would stop saying it. And that's how the system worked. And then it turned out
it's so
Trump
sensible.
Yeah, but Trump realized that if you just keep saying it, then you take away the power from that whole system, the whole fact-checking system and journalism. That doesn't matter anymore. If you have no shame, that's kind of a superpower. And he certainly taught that to other Republicans. And, you mentioned Kristi Noem thinking about running for president. Why wouldn't she? Why wouldn't someone in her position say, look, I've been a cabinet secretary. I'm producing all these great videos. I've got all my costumes. I've remade my very physical form in order to conform to this thing that is so celebrated now on the right. And why wouldn't I be able to ascend to the top job? Which seems perfectly reasonable from where she sits, and she's riding around on the private jet with her paramour, Corey Lewandowski, allegedly. And, everything's going great.
That's a good place to end this. Thank you so much, Paul. So hype yourself. Remind everybody where they can find you, your socials, your newsletter, everything.
My newsletter is at paulwaldman.substack.com. It's called The Cross Section. I write for Public Notice and for MS Now. And I'm on Blue Sky at Paul Waldman.
Thank you again for being on Standing Room Only.
Thanks. It's been great.
And thank you all for watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you can see more videos like this. And stick around for Encore. We have a great song recommendation from a new artist this week. Hey folks, coming to you from Latchkey Records. That's my partner's store in Philadelphia. And today's song recommendation is an artist named Hemlock Springs, and her album is called The Apple Tree Under the Sea. It just came out. It's her second record. She was kind of a TikTok viral sensation, and now she's really trying to go for the big time. And I cannot tell you how much I love this album. And the song that I am recommending for you today is WWWWW, or I don't know, we think it might also be pronounced who knows. It's a cool song though. She's not hyper pop. You might think that from the really over-the-top presentation of this record. And she does like to do kind of campy, a lot of wigs, a lot of color, a lot of costumes kind of presentation. She opened for Chapel Rowan on a recent tour. They're very kind of similar vibes. But this music is, I think, part of what we're going to see as a pop trend going forward, which is kind of throwback to both the 80s and the early aughts. There's a lot of old-fashionedness in this, like the synth music, the beats, the way that she does it. It's also sonically really rich and diverse music. She's got a lot going on, which is a good reason to listen to this on record and not on streaming or YouTube, because you're not going to hear all those little details. She's a really interesting singer. She does a lot of different voices. There's a bit of theater kid energy there, as my partner Mark pointed out. And I think that kind of really elaborate vocal presentation needs that kind of music behind it, that like very dense music. So yeah, Hemlock Springs. It's a great new record. I think she's gonna go places. If you want more Standing Room Only episodes, please click the subscribe button below. Standing Room Only started as a newsletter, and it's free to read. Click the link to subscribe. I love tips. These political battles are playing out in your communities, your towns, your neighborhoods, your schools. If you have a story, please drop me a line or leave it in comments.